All right. I'm Natalie. I'm from the Sixth Ward. So this I titled this "Don't Settle for Fine," because I think a lot of times in our life we decide it's not that big of a deal. Like things aren't quite where I want them to be in this relationship with this other person, but it's not that bad. It's okay. It's fine, right? My theory is don't settle for that. Like you can have a lot more peace and connection in your relationships if you learn some more communication skills. So we're going to start with some good videos.
If you want a man to love you forever and ever and ever and ever, listen to the woman who's been divorced 3 times. You want him to love you forever? Don't talk to him. I didn't say don't talk with him. I just said don't talk to him. Men will tell you when they have something to say because they are task-oriented. When a man talks to a woman, he has something in mind, okay? A beginning, a middle, an end. My work here is done. Something has been accomplished. Women are drunk drivers on the information highway. We don't have to have a point. We just talk. We just talk.
So I'm sure everyone can relate to that, right? And then here's the next one. This is the flip side. Have you guys seen this?
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. But you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there.
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing.
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
See, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like, there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
That sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you.
Ow! Come on. If you would just
Don't.
So great, right? Everyone can note that. Don't let me pass these out. So I'm a thorough person, so I have an overabundance of handouts for you guys. We won't cover them all, but maybe you'll get something out of them later. I love this from Tony Robbins. The way we communicate with others and ourselves ultimately determines our quality of life. Everything you do in life involves communication with the people around you, whether that's your spouse, whether that's your children, young, old, whether that's friends, people you have to work with in the church, people you work with outside of the church, right? Everything we do involves communication. And if you can't do it well, things just don't go well. It doesn't matter how skilled or capable you are in other areas. It makes it difficult. Okay, will someone turn to, it's the second page where it has quotes, and will someone read that first one?
I've got it.
Okay, go ahead.
Elder Marvin J. Ashton of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles said, if we would know true love and understanding one for another, we must realize that communication is more than a sharing of words. It is the wise sharing of emotions, feelings, and concerns. It is the sharing of oneself totally.
Okay, so I love that. Like it is like, and then the other quotes talk about like Christ-like communication, right? It's like Christ couldn't do his work without communication. That was essential. It was at times probably more significant than the miracles he performed was the ways that he communicated with people and spoke to them. I pushed the wrong one. You can learn how to do it for sure. It is a skill. It can be broken down. It doesn't have to be like this vague, okay, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, like that poor man in the nail video. He's trying so hard. It's like, okay, I'm trying, but like this is not working. You can learn how to do it for a way that works for both parties, right? You can learn how to do, focus on yourself and your part, and you can create changes in the relationship, whether the other person chooses to do anything different or not. Like you have so much power just as one part of the unit. Does that make sense? Okay, so what doesn't work well? Like when you guys have been communicating with other people, maybe I should just look on these, but like what are communication behaviors that we engage in, even though we know they don't work well, we just kind of like go to them anyway.
Digging for information.
Digging, I definitely do. I want to know everything about it. Yeah, every little detail. So you keep digging and you feel the other person kind of like, and you just keep going, right? Yep, we do that because we want to know. We want connection. We want understanding, right? Okay, any other ones that come to mind? Did you read? Yeah.
Worry.
Worry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That goes a lot to, like, a lot of times in communication, I was preparing this presentation and like, okay, there's the speaking aspect and there's the listening aspect. And then I was like, nope, there's the preparation aspect. And learning how to manage your worry, identify what it is, and regulate yourself, that is so important before you proceed into any type of communication with someone else, right? I've got to manage myself before I step in and start engaging with someone else. 100% that's there. And it leads to a lot of behaviors that don't help. Yeah.
Dominating the conversation rather than focusing on listening and understanding,
Mhm.
trying to get my point across more.
Yep, for sure. That happens all of the time. Okay, anything else?
Defensiveness.
Defensiveness, 100%. There's the Gottmans, if you guys have heard of them, like big marriage researchers, but they call them the 4 horsemen, and it's like, they're the things that signify that a relationship is really not in a good place, and criticism is one of them. Contempt is one, stonewalling, defensiveness, that's what it is. Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna just read these so we can kind of talk about, you're such a dork, that's my husband's.
Read it.
No, you're a dork. Okay, so people can have a hard time talking with their adult children about politics. 100%. Things where you disagree on politics, religion, especially in our culture, those are huge areas of division for family members, and they don't have to be. I need to put these so I can go back to them. Talking to their spouse about finances. Yep, definitely a big one. An aging mother-in-law, anything that they disagree on. So if you have different viewpoints or different opinions. Okay, so this person says with their adult children, they don't talk about them leaving the church. So they just avoid the subject completely. Or aging parents again.
It's the same one. I just rewrote it.
Okay. An adult child who's in trouble with the law may go to jail. Yeah. My brother just got out of jail, so carry on that one. Spouse, talking with your spouse about how you want to raise your children. What you think is important to prioritize. Talking with children about, again, faith, religious, worship, missionary activity. Yep, those are all definitely big ones. So that's good. I'm going to come back to those. Okay, so here's the 3 areas we're going to focus on. Preparing yourself. I said listening next and sharing next. A lot of times it can depend like what you choose to do first, whether that's the sharing or the listening. Sometimes it works better to engage in the listening and allow the other person to share first. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it works better for you to share first and then, reach for their point of view and their feelings. That just kind of depends. So the first thing you have to do is like the mindfulness of self. This is your prep work. That is a lot, like really sets the stage for a better conversation. So your thoughts and your feelings. If you look in your handouts, there's a feeling wheel. That's this one right here. This is super important. A lot of people don't know how to identify their feelings well. A lot of people only know how to identify like secondary feelings, and that's like in the anger category. So over here, there's a lot of men especially that the only emotions they feel are angry or happy. And that's all they got going on. So it's really hard to communicate with someone else if you're stuck over here in anger. Anger is usually, like they say, it's a secondary emotion. So I might actually be feeling instead, I might be feeling inadequate. I might be feeling attacked. I might be feeling out of control. I might be feeling inferior, right? All of those feelings that I don't want to feel, I'll jump straight over to an angry feeling because that makes me feel stronger, makes me feel less weak, makes me feel more in control. Doesn't go well if you're like, well, let me communicate my feeling of anger towards you. It's like, nope, you have to go find the underlying feeling. So that goes into finding your mindfulness of self. Interpretation of story is probably not in order. So a lot of times you have people form like underlying beliefs or thought patterns or stories that they tell themselves about someone else's behavior. So if my husband comes home and he's like super quiet, I could have a story, like I might have this underlying belief that lingers around in there of like, I'm not significant, right? So it's like, oh, like he came home, like he's not talking to me, like, does he not care about me? You know, like I'm not really important to him, right? That's like, and I can just run away with that. I've not checked in with him at all. I have no idea what's going on. He could have come home, had a rough day at work, and he's trying to process his day at work, but I've run away with my story. So I need to know what those stories are. Here's this behavior. I'm having a hard time with it. What am I telling myself it means? Am I telling, you know what I mean? Am I telling myself that he doesn't care about me? Okay, I maybe need to fact check that. Is there something else that like could be going on? You look at the influence of your past too. Like, have you had history with this person in the past that is triggering something, some feelings from the past? You know, it's like, maybe that's how my dad acted when he got home from work and I never felt love from him, right? Because he just came home and was quiet. Something. If you're talking about spouse with finances, maybe growing up, finances were a thing in your house. Maybe your parents had a lot of conflict over finances, and so it feels really scary or difficult for you to bring them up with your spouse. Maybe your spouse had issues with finances growing up, right? Maybe you guys have had a history of bankruptcy in the family or whatever. So you figure out what from the past is contributing to big feelings right now in the present. The most generous explanation, that's where you figure out what's the nicest story I can tell myself about the other person's behavior. So let's see, how to raise your kids. What's the nicest story I can tell myself about the other person's behavior? They think I'm stupid and I don't know how to raise kids and I have horrible ideas, right, about what's important. Or they care very deeply about our children. They really value like them, I don't know what it would be. They really value them finding a testimony or having a relationship with God, or they really value them doing well in school because they think it will set them up for success later on as an adult where they won't have to struggle financially, right? So I can tell myself really different stories about their behavior. This one is really important to find the most generous explanation, and it's usually more accurate. Accountability. You've got to figure out what is the part that I play in this difficulty in our communication. What do I do that makes it hard for the other person? Are there things that I need to apologize for? Have I been, all those things that we talked about where we're like, I was defensive, or I was just really focused on like getting my point across and I didn't show any interest in listening to what was happening for you, right? You have to take ownership of yourself and what you need to do differently. Yeah.
I just wanted to throw something out. That's something I've been really working on in my relationship. And one of the tricks that's helping me is to do that out loud with my spouse.
Yeah.
And so I'll try and just step back and say, I'm really going to try and be reflective for a minute. And I can see that these are some of the things that I might have done or have done.
Yeah.
And I'm finding that it neutralizes everything immediately because all of a sudden he's like, wow, that was so reflective.
Yeah.
And what I found I was doing is I was doing that internally, but by verbalizing it, it's kind of this peace offering.
Yep.
To just.
Yep. Yeah. Everything you're doing right here in the prep work is going to be the first things that you share with them.
Yeah.
the first things, because exactly what you said, it neutralizes the situation. Like, you're not the bad guy, they're not the bad guy. You see the good in them, you want them to see the good in you. You're being vulnerable with your feelings and sharing, you know, the primary feelings, not the anger, that allows them to do the same thing. They can still choose not to, right? But this is about, I'm accountable for myself. I can control myself, I can make changes for myself, and I let the other person do whatever they're going to do. The last one is the emotional regulation with self-compassion. So this is what helps you need less from your partner or your child or your mother-in-law or whoever it is that you're talking to. This helps you need less from them because you've already given yourself what you're looking for. Okay, this one is, sorry, it's in here somewhere. It's this self-compassion writing prompt. So it looks like this. So this is super effective in helping people emotionally regulate and improving relationships. So you go through, something happened with whoever, you're going to go through, you're going to write the events down. Writing is more powerful. Write down really scientifically what happened, this. Then you find your feelings, right? You're very, very concise. I felt abandoned. I felt insecure. I felt worried. I hate the feelings frustrated and anxious. Don't stop with those feelings. They're not that helpful. They're like to,
What does it look like?
oh, sorry. It looks like this one. It just says self-compassion writing prompts. Sorry, I should have gotten numbers on these. And then you go into the common humanity. So that's where you validate yourself. Like, why does it make sense that I feel this way? It totally makes sense, right? Because this happened. Because it's really hard for me when I don't agree with religious things with my kids, right? It's like I care so much about them and I worry about them, how their life will be. And so, of course, this is hard for me. Is it hard for other people in this situation? Yes. Is there something from my past that makes it harder? Yeah, I watched my dad, you know, not be active in the church, and I saw how much pain that brought him and how hard it was for the family, and it led to this or whatever. So it totally makes sense why I'm so scared right now and why this is so hard for me. And then you give yourself compassion, and compassion is not a pep talk. It's okay that you're having a hard time with this. Like, this is hard for you, and that's okay. It's okay for it to be hard, right? So that's the emotional regulation. So you're bringing yourself down before you even go into conversation with the other person. You've done your prep work, you have this stuff down, and then you're getting ready to move forward. Oh, I had that on there. Okay. So then the soft startup. This is where your preparation involves the other person. So this is where you start sharing all of the things that you just prepped yourself on, right? And you give a really clear, a lot of this is on, I did a little like this first page is kind of outline. You set the stage for what the conversation is going to be about. So you share what you want to talk about. You're going to share any worries you have about discussing it because it's either not gone well in the past or you guys have avoided talking about it in general. You're going to share what you hope will happen. Why are you willing to step into a hard conversation with them, an uncomfortable conversation with them? Like, there's a reason why you want to, because you want intimacy, because you want more peace, because you want to understand them better, because you want to be on the same page, because you want to know how to support them. You know, like, there's a lot of like really good reasons why hard conversations are worth it. You're going to tell them what the response you're looking for from them is, right? I'm really hoping that you can listen to what I have to say, and then I really want to hear what your perspective is, what your experience is. Okay, listen, and then it's my turn to talk. Great. I'm really hoping that we can problem solve at the end of this and come to a compromise that works for both of us. Okay, great, got it. I know what you want me to do. And then you ask them, do you feel okay if we proceed and talk about this? They might say no, they might say yes. They might say maybe later, let me have some time to prep. Let me have some time to think about it, right? But you offer them that choice. So if we were going to talk about one of these, let's say adult, child, and in trouble with the law, may go to jail. Hey, I'd really like to have a conversation with you about what's happening with you and the law and possibly going to jail. I'm worried. I really don't want us to get into an argument about this. I don't want you to feel like I'm attacking you. I don't want you to feel like I'm ashamed of you or upset with you, right? I really want to know how you're feeling about this. I want to understand more about what the process is like for you, what the possibilities might be that you're facing. And I want to know how I can best support you at this time, because I imagine it's difficult. I imagine it's a scary situation that you're finding yourself in. I'm really hoping that you can share with me how you're feeling. I'm hoping that you can share with me, what you know about the process and the possibilities. I'm hoping you can tell me what would be helpful for me, how I can show up for you. Would you feel okay talking about this right now? Right? Totally different as opposed to coming up to them and being like, okay, we have got to talk about this jail thing. Right? No way. But if you do that soft startup, they can feel like you care about them, right? They know that you love them. They know that you're worried about them, and they know that you want to show up for them, and you maybe just don't know how, right? So it totally sets just sets the stage to have a much better conversation, the likelihood of it. Again, they have choice and they have agency. Okay. All right, now we get into the speaking part, which that was kind of part of it. So there's another thing in here that kind of talks about these communication styles. These really are out of order. Oh, it's really at the beginning. So right here, this one right here, we talk about these 4 different styles. There's aggressive. I think you all know what that looks like. Passive aggressive, passive, and assertive. You're aiming for over here. And a really good way to look at these is to think about, I love this, do you have, what does the openness of communication look like? Do you have high amount of openness or low amount of openness? And your consideration for others. Do you have high consideration for others or low consideration for others? So over here in aggressive, you have really high levels of open communication, kind of, because it's all coming out in the anger usually. But you really don't have a lot of consideration for the other person in the conversation, right? It's all about you and how you're feeling and what you want, and you're going to just push for that. And you're not really going to worry about what the other person is, what's happening for them. In passive aggressive, you actually are just really focused more on yourself, but your level of communication is so low. Your openness is so low. You're not actively sharing. You're not being open in what you're saying. And so it comes out, your aggression comes out kind of underhanded, right? And so that's also not helpful. People think well, I'm being the better one because I'm not yelling and I'm being unselfish and I'm being whatever, but it also doesn't work well. Passive, you have low level of openness, right? You don't really share anything. And your consideration for yourself is actually quite low. So that also doesn't work well, right? You end up with problems that are just sometimes take longer to come across. So assertive is where I have high consideration for you and for me in this conversation, and I have a high level of openness. I am going to speak and I am going to share. I'm going to do it in the way that we prepped and talked about, right? It's the wise sharing. It's not just I get to say whatever I want and you just have to take it. It's a wise sharing and it's a mindful sharing. You've done your prep work. So that's what you're aiming for, is the assertive. I will just say I think in our culture, there's a high amount of people who have very passive or passive aggressive communication because they think it is more Christ-like. They think it's, I don't know, nicer. They think it means they're being unselfish, but it is very problematic in relationships. It causes a lot of distance. You can't be close and connected with someone when you're not showing up. You're not being seen. You can't be. And it causes a lot of resentment because one person gets to be more highly valued than the other. And you can only do that for so long before it causes a lot of problems. That's where you're getting to a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression, a lot of just apathy, I feel like, in the relationship, and hopelessness. So it's as equally problematic as two people screaming at each other. Equally problematic, it's just less visible. Okay. Forgetting if no one's sitting about these. Okay, so the consideration of others, this is where we do the most generous explanation. You're going to acknowledge their perspective. You have to be able to tolerate, no one's right, no one's wrong, right? You can experience something completely different than the other person. Your take on it, the story you tell about it is going to be totally different. And that's okay because we're different, right? You have to take accountability and you have to be able to offer validation and compassion to the other person. That comes naturally when you get their side. Okay, so if we're talking about your spouse and finances, did I already do that one? What could be a most generous explanation for that situation? Is it that, I mean, usually it's one person spends more, one person wants to spend less, right? Is that it? So if your spouse is the person who wants to spend more, what's the most generous explanation of their behavior?
Worldly.
You nailed it. This is why I married him.
They value that thing more than maybe I understand or I value.
Okay. So it's like, what do they want to spend it on? Why do they want to spend it on that? What do they think that's going to bring to them or to their family, right? Maybe they really value like fun experiences because like that to them feels like it builds unity and it bonds them together and creates happy memories that they can look back on, right? There's something beautiful that they're wanting in spending. The person who doesn't want to spend as much money, you're miserly, you're what, like you're just so tight with money and you're uptight and whatever, you can say all kinds of things. Or what's the most generous explanation of their behavior?
They value security, by having more saved.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of speaks to what they value and what comfort that brings them, or security that brings them.
Yeah.
Or they have good farsightedness.
Yeah, they're really good at thinking ahead. They want to make sure everyone's taken care of. And yeah. The other thing that comes up a lot is there's a values paper in here. This one, a values checklist. So a lot of times when you're having conflict with someone, it can be because you are valuing different things. Like some of the things on this list, I value a lot more than my husband. So I could say, oh my gosh, well, you're so dumb. Like, why don't you want to do it this way? Or why would you every day just to keep it?
And that's your most generous explanation.
Yeah, so I'm being really nice. No, but it's like all of these are great values, but sometimes they come in conflict with each other, right? Like fun and humor can come in conflict with
Industry.
Yep.
Safety and protection.
Yes, right. Does that mean that one of them is dumb and one of them is good? No. It just means like all of these are important in life. And so sometimes you just have to recognize, okay, I think my desire for security is coming up against your desire for fun and connection, right? Okay. So how, that helps you be able to move forward of how can we meet both of these things that are important to us? How can we compromise here when you've seen it from a good place instead of like, gosh, you never want to spend any money at all and we're just stuck and we're never going to have fun, or like, you're blowing through everything. We're never going to be safe. We're never going to be secure. Like we're not going to have savings. What about, so it just makes it different. Okay. Okay. So this is kind of like like this framework on the front page, when you're speaking, this is where you do all of this. Like you're going to offer that generous explanation. This is kind of where I think you might be coming from, or why this was hard from you, right? You're going to say, I can understand that. It's hard. Like if you're really excited about this trip and I'm, dragging my feet and not sure I want to do it, I could see how that would be hard for you because, you value this and it's important to you that our family has experiences like this. Then it's really important that you just stick to these. Then you say what's hard for you, how you felt, maybe the way they communicated. It was hard for me when you said this. It was hard for me when you said, I don't know. What would you say?
Gorgeous.
Usually it's like some kind of, there's a difference between like a complaint and a criticism. A criticism is when I say like a negative judgment about you. A complaint would be like, it was hard for me when you said you didn't want to spend the money, right? That's a complaint. Criticism would be like, you're dumb, or you're stupid, or you're no fun, or you're whatever.
Controlling.
Yeah, you're controlling. Totally, that would be in there, right? So that would be hard. So maybe I would say like, it was really hard for me when you said I'm controlling. I felt, what did I feel? Maybe misunderstood. I felt attacked. I felt insecure. I felt sad, whatever, right? And then you just go right into what do you want to happen differently in the future? I would like us to be able to discuss our differences around how we want to spend our money with more respect. I would like for you to hear my concerns or what's important to me, and then offer some validation, some compassion for our differences. And then I would like for you to share in a respectful way what's important to you. That's like super spelled out, right? Things that go wrong when people are trying to do this is they get really, really wordy. Like, especially, I'm going to say women, I'm going to gender it, but they will, oh, there was another funny video clip where the guy was like, tell better stories. You're going all over the place. But you'll have like the wise nugget that needs to be shared. And it's like heaped up in this mound of words, all of this fluff. And it's hard for people to like zone in on what was the important part of what you needed to say. And people do that because they feel uncomfortable being direct. It feels vulnerable, right? But you just have to do it. You have to be concise. Staying in the present, you cannot pull in everything from the past, all of your hurts that you still have, things you haven't forgiven them for. You can't go to the future of like, you're going to ruin our lives by spending all this money. We're going to lose our house. Right? Like you manage your own affairs. You don't pull those in. You just stay right in the present, this moment right here. How can we fix this? How can we do this differently moving forward? You keep it about your perspective. So that doesn't mean you can say, I felt blank because you. It's just, this was hard for me. I felt this way, right? Criticism, negative judgments, we talked about that a little bit. And if you find yourself saying never or always, you got to step back because it's not going to be helpful. You're just setting yourself up for defensiveness from the other person. Okay, into the asking questions and listening. This is so important. You're listening to understand. You're not listening to find flaws in what they're saying, to disagree with their process of how they arrived at something. You're not listening so that then you can prove to them that you're right later and your perspective is better or your idea is better. You have to be listening to understand what's going on for them. You want to ask them, you want to find out what was hard for them. You're looking for their underlying feelings because you can't empathize with them if you don't know what their underlying feelings are. So you can't validate them unless you understand why they're thinking the way they're thinking. And you're trying to find out what do they want, how do they want things to be differently or done differently in the future? What changes are they wanting to see? So, I lost it. Okay, so you're going to ask what helps you with this. You're engaging with curiosity. Sometimes people ask the questions they're asking are not broad enough. The point of asking questions is you're trying to open the door so that whatever's on their mind, whatever they're feeling, like it just comes out. So if your questions are too specific, it really limits them in just sharing what's on their mind. Does that make sense? So broad questions are like, okay, so tell me about what that was like for you when we talked about, I don't know what it is, when we talked about politics last time. Tell me what that's like for you when we talk about it, as opposed to like, you know, why do you think this certain way about, I don't know. You can just try to keep it broad. Just try to keep it broad and vague so they can talk about whatever's on their mind. Confirm what you're hearing. That's where you're checking in to see if you're actually getting it. If you assume that you get it and you didn't check in, you're probably wrong. Like check in. Okay, it sounds like you're have a hard time because it feels like I'm not listening to your side. Okay, that makes sense. I can see how sometimes I do that, right? That's I'm already taking accountability. Yeah, I could see how it would come across that way. It doesn't mean that's what you're trying to do, but can you see it from their perspective? Yeah, that makes sense. I could see why that would be hard. I could see how you'd see it that way. I could see how you would interpret it that way. Right? And then find the emotion. It sounds like you know, maybe did you feel like this when this was happening? Or do you feel worried? Right? You're trying to find that emotion. So you have to understand so you can offer the validation. You have to find the emotion so you can express the genuine empathy. So easy phrases are, it sounds like, checking in, am I getting this right? So you were feeling maybe this, you know? Okay, that makes sense. I can see how that would be like that for you. I could see how you felt that way, or I could see your thought processes or why this was hard for you. And I can see why that's hard, right? That's the empathy. The validation is it makes sense. Empathy is, yeah, that is hard. I can see that.
I have a problem with validation.
Yeah,
Because
lots of people do. I still do at
I
times.
recognize that I have a problem, but I feel like I'm being asked to validate when I can't.
So because you don't have to agree.
I
A
just
lot of
have
people
to
think that it means I have to
understand.
agree. So that makes sense to me that you experienced it that way because now you've explained it to me. You've explained that this happened and you thought it meant this and then this happened and right. So does their process make sense to me? It doesn't mean I agree with it. It doesn't mean like I agree with, oh yeah, that's what that person meant when they said that. But if that's what they thought it meant, and then now they have all these feelings from it, like, oh, okay, I can see that. That could make sense to me of what, you know, that you could interpret that statement that way. I can see that. And especially if we think about like our past with each other, I can see how that would make sense to you too, right? So you're not going to get into problem solving or fixing or apologizing or correcting anything. You don't do any of that yet.
And that's also different than saying I understand,
Yeah,
because people can get
Yeah.
upset that you
you
can't
don't understand. Yeah. And so you can say that too. You know, I don't understand exactly what your experience was like because I'm not you, but I can see, you know, I'm trying to see what it was like for you. And I can see that it was really hard and difficult and, you know, great, whatever.
Well, and I love how Brene Brown talks about empathy when she talks about you don't have to agree
Mhm.
and you don't have to understand, but you can just say, you're not alone. I'll stay here
Mhm.
and try to understand or at least listen or just be on the journey with you.
Yeah.
And I think that helps too, because I feel the same way you do. Like, well, if I don't agree and I don't understand, I'm not sure how to step into that. But she just said, don't. Just
Yeah.
walk alongside. Just say, I just want you to know you're not alone.
Engage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep, you're just there. Because there is, a lot of people do get hung up on, if I don't say I agree with you, then I feel like I have to agree for me to have compassion or empathy, and I don't. Or sometimes the other person, like you might be holding your space over here we can have two different perspectives of the same event. We can have two different beliefs. We can have differences and that's okay. Sometimes the other person is like, no, we can't. You have to agree with me. You have to see it my way, right? And that's where you're like, that's their work, you know? I wish I did. You can say, I wish I did, because it would make things a lot easier if we, you know, had the same thoughts or had, you know, saw things the same way, but I just don't, you know? But I'm okay with you. It's okay if we're different. It's okay if we think differently about this or if we experienced it differently. That doesn't mean either one of us is wrong, right? Like, you just kind of go from there. So the other person might troll you for it. I see that a lot because it feels very threatening of if we're not on the same page about everything, like, then I'm scared we're not going to be okay. So you just speak to that fear of like reassure you, like, it's okay. It's okay for us to disagree. It's okay for us to want different things. It's okay for us to believe different things, right? It's okay for us to value different things. That's okay. We can still be connected and we can move forward and have a relationship even with differences. Everybody does, right? So you just reassure that. Okay, so I like this clip because it really demonstrates good sharing and good listening. Oh no, it went bye-bye.
I'm going to the moon. Riley can't be done with me.
Hey, it's gonna be okay. We can fix this. We just need to get back to headquarters. Which way to the train station?
I had a whole trip planned for us.
Hey, who's ticklish, huh? Here comes the tickle monster. Hey, Bing Bong, look at this. Oh, here's a fun game. You point to the train station and we all go there. Won't that be fun? Come on, let's go to the train station.
I'm sorry they took your rocket. They took something that you loved. It's gone forever.
Sadness. Don't make him feel worse.
Sorry.
It's all I had left of Riley.
I bet you and Riley had great adventures.
Oh, they were wonderful. Once we flew back in time. We had breakfast twice that day.
Sadness.
It sounds amazing. I bet Riley liked it.
Oh, she did. We were best friends.
Yeah, it's sad.
I'm okay now. Come on. The train station is this way.
Okay, what did you guys see? That was good sharing and good listening. Yeah.
Well, Sadness was willing to meet him where he was at, but maybe she was just one-dimensional, but at least she connected to where the emotion he was having.
Yeah. And Joy was like, okay, like good intentions, right? Good intentions. I want you to feel better. I want us to be able to keep moving and accomplish what we're trying to do. Great intentions. It wasn't helpful. So there's something to be said about like, I'm going to meet you where you are. We're going to make space for whatever this emotion was. It's so interesting because emotions, like, they're actually quite short-lived unless we keep them going with unhelpful responses to them. But it's like, there was the sadness, it was there, had a little cry, and it's like, okay, he was ready to move on and keep going. Yeah.
She acknowledged the reality of what happened.
Yeah.
As opposed to trying to cover it up like was a joy, was trying to just not think about it, just move on to something happy, as opposed to sadness was, yeah, you're never gonna, I can't remember what she said, never gonna have that back again.
Yeah.
You kind of just showed empathy and faced reality with it.
Yeah. And there's like a fear of why don't we do that? Why do we want to be like Joy? Like, I mean, I think we all feel that pull, right? It's because, you know, we're worried, what if they just sit there sad forever? You know, like if you think about your kids or your spouse or whatever, it's like, what if they lose themselves in that? Like, what if we don't go and get things done that we need to get done? Like, what if they, you know, what if it's too much for them? What if they, you know, decide to harm themselves? What, you know, it's like, there's fears of why we're like, let's get you out of here as fast as possible. But it's not super helpful. There can be a time where after you address the emotions first, And then it's much better to step into like, what do you need? What would be helpful for you right now, right? We take care of the emotions, we spend some time with it, we care for it. We don't just sit there forever. Then we figure out what's going to be helpful for you right now moving forward. And you can do the same thing to yourself. I showed that clip to a girl struggling with an eating disorder who she's joy to herself. She's like, no, I can't do, like, nope, just keep going, like mind over matter, and just ignore it. And showing her that clip, and it was like, oh, yeah, like I need more of that. I need more of that response, like that sadness gives. I need to do that to myself because that's actually going to be helpful, right? Sorry, does someone else have something? Okay. The other thing I'll say is like the power of checking in. You just check in, like you have meta conversations about your communication. So if you're in the middle of like one of these conversations, talking with someone about this, your adult child in politics, and you're trying to do things and something starts to feel like it's not going very well, you just time out right there. Okay, wait, hold on. It seems like we were doing well, and then it just seems like something went off track. And I feel like maybe something I did was hard for you. Just really, did I say something that was hard for you? Is it what happened right now? I can feel you kind of pulling back, or you say it's me, like, oh, hold on a second. I can feel myself getting like that fear I have for you is just, it totally just came up, and I don't want to respond to you out of fear. I want to respond to you with respect and kindness, right? So hold on a second. Like, I just need to like put my fear, address it. You can ask them like, do you feel like I'm understanding you? Do you feel like, how do you feel like I'm listening? Do you feel like I'm not really listening? Do you feel like I'm still trying to just come back and like prove to you that I'm right and you're wrong? And, maybe they'll say yes. Okay, tell me about that more. Like, what do you think, why do you think that's happening right now, right? Get some more information. Share from your side. If you're like, okay, hold on. I don't feel like you're really understanding me. I know you're trying, but like, it just doesn't feel like it's like going very well, right? You put a timeout and you address it right there in that moment. The thing with communication is the more you can have immediacy and directness, the better it goes. So the sooner you catch something that feels off, that didn't seem helpful. There's a lot of power in using the terms helpful and unhelpful. It's not good or bad. It's just like working for me or not working for me, right? Okay, so how do these conversations end? Sometimes the resolution comes just because each person feels understood and respected. The respected means I'm not saying my way is better than your way. I'm not saying my perception is better than your perception. I'm not saying my value is better than your value, or that my belief is better than your belief, right? And sometimes that's really hard to do when it comes to religion in our
but what? They're wrong.
So you go back to, do I trust God?
Right. You just have to stand back.
Do I trust God that he plays the long game? Like, these are his children. Like, he cares and loves about every single one of us. He knows what we struggle with. He knows why some things in the church don't work for us, right? Like, he knows us and he loves us and he's never going to leave us. Like, Brother Wilcox's story, like, we might get off the bus, but do you think that's God's only bus? That is not his only bus. He's going to have more buses coming by. He's going to have a hitchhiker walk right alongside that person that got off the bus. Like, he does not leave his children, even if they want to leave him. Like, he does not leave them. And so I think that's where I'm saying you manage your own fear. You learn how to regulate your own fear so that when I show up with this child, it's not my fear that comes screaming out at them, right? Because they feel that. But I want it to be my love and my connection, my desire for connection that comes screaming out at them. I want it to be a safe place where they can talk about, okay, what was hard about the church for you? Can I understand that from you? Can I give you like a safe place? I just had, we're out of time. But I was working with a couple, and I think all three of their adult children have left the church. I'm not sure about one of them. Anyway, they were like, can we bring our kids in? Because there's all of these things we're not talking about and we feel the distance. There's so much distance and disconnection because we can't talk about these things. I was like, yes, like some of my favorite sessions are when adult children come in with their parents. They're beautiful. But it just allows them to like, how can we talk about this? How can I say, I want to understand your experience? Not because I'm going to try to change your mind, but because I want to connect with you. Because I want to know how to show up and support you in your life. Because I want to be your cheerleader. Because, you know, I want you to have a safe place where you can talk about anything. And I go back to, I trust God. I trust him. Like, we are here to learn by experience. And sometimes people's experiences, they learn from being away from God. They learn that they need him. And sometimes it takes years. I mean, like my brother who just got out of jail, he's what, 40? I can't remember how old. He's 40 something, 40. It's been years of him being away from family, from God, right? And these experiences are shaping his life. Do I want them for him? Heavens no. Would I have waved my magic wand and like prevented so much pain in his life? Yes, I would have. But it wouldn't be the same for him, you know? Like he's, I don't know, like we just have our experiences and pain is part of it and we trust God. But this life is for experience and he does not leave his children ever. We're so out of time. Okay, sometimes it just comes from feeling understood and respected. There's no like great answer. Sometimes it comes because once you feel understood and respected, then you can move into like problem solving compromise stage. Like, okay, so how do we want to approach this trip you want to take and money that I don't want to spend, right? Now we understand each other and let's talk about it. Maybe we spend half the amount of money, or maybe we go on one this year but not next year or whatever. And then sometimes it comes this one, learning to accept and tolerate differences in a more helpful way. So that's where it goes back to, can I be okay if my children choose to do something different than me? If they choose to not be involved in the church, and I am. If they choose to support one political candidate and I can't stand that candidate, you know, like, can I accept and tolerate differences? These are the things that make it hard. I think that's on there. Accepting, that's either in there too. And then just repair is your most important communication tool. It is never, ever, ever too late to go back and say, you know what? I really didn't like how I showed up there. Or, you know what? I have regrets that I said this thing or that I wasn't more respectful of you. Never, ever too late. Again, like some of the most beautiful sessions I've had, like adult man, his parents came in, he struggled with substances, he's left the church and they came in and it was beautiful. Like he found so much healing for them saying, you know, we were doing the best, but like I can see that like we hurt you in some of the ways that we approach things with you. We really hurt you and we're sorry. We love you. We love you more than, you know, anything. So never ever too late. Go back and just say you're sorry. Say you wish you would have done it differently. And that opens up the door to like start talking about things again. That's all. I don't know if I went over everything. This is a little bit about like roles. That's kind of like understanding your role. A lot of times we want to take over other people's control. We don't want to allow freedom. This questioning stories is about finding like some of your underlying beliefs that come into play when you're talking with people. This is recognizing patterns, like figuring out the pattern in your communication so you can make changes. There's just all kinds of things in there. You can look at them, throw them away, don't do them. Yeah, that's it.